Welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. I'm Spike Spangle. Every single week, we like to help you with retirement planning solutions. Mr. Tim Lofton, what's on your mind this week?
It's called a hangover.
A hangover?
It's the inflation hangover, Spike.
Oh, the inflation hangover.
The inflation hangover.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Although I do have to say, I've never had a hangover in my life.
Spike, you went to ASU. There's no way that the very definition of going to ASU is a constant hangover.
To my other ASU alumni and supporters out there, what he's saying is pretty true.
Yes,
but yeah, the inflation hangover. We've been told that inflation has been coming down. We've talked about it a lot on TV. We've talked about it a lot on radio. The inflation number is coming down.
Right.
But the prices haven't been coming down.
The prices are not. The prices
and in fact,
are not.
A new poll recently, 90% of pre-retirees and retirees are worried that this inflation is going to completely derail their retirement plans. So that's what we want to discuss today. How are the higher sustained costs affecting you in retirement? More importantly, later in the program, what you need to do today. So for the folks that you're talking to, Tim, is that the worry? Are you getting that a lot? Tim, is our plan still going to work?
It is. And I think when you look at how people view being on a fixed income, when prices go up, they have X amount of dollars coming in, and that doesn't change. And, although the inflation number appears to be dropping, the costs at the grocery store, the costs at the gas station, the electric bill, the insurance, all of those costs have increased. Those haven't dropped down just because inflation has lowered.
Right. That Schroeder's 2024 retirement study that we shared together, by the way, if you've never read it, it is a page turner, folks. It'll help you sleep at night.
That's as facetious as you not having a hangover.
Yes, yeah, but again, let's not bang on my ASU alumni here.
All right.
But 89% of Americans are worried about inflation, how it's going to impact their lifestyle. 88% of retirees are unsure how to generate effective income in higher inflationary times. A lot of concern out there. It's not 100%, but it's about as close as we get. Most Americans are worried about these high costs.
They are, Spike, and a lot of it is generated because of where we are as a country. Remember, we've transitioned from that golden age of pensions where, we worked 30 years, got our gold watch, we receive a check in the mailbox every month, to now it's all 401k. And then you look at Social Security and some of the problems that exist there, and it's a legitimate concern that people have on how are we going to keep up? How are we going to continue to live the life that we want to live?
Right, and that fixed income, I almost want to say that's also something that's used in air quotes, fixed income.
Yes.
Because I get that 30 or 40 years ago, a lot of folks would use bank CDs, you get a little bit of interest, and, maybe some bonds, but that fixed kind of income still needs to have increase of growth over time.
It has to. We know this. If you look at a 3% inflation rate, the cost of living is going to double every 20 years. So we have to have a growth component to our income. It has to happen just to keep pace, just to stay in the status quo.
Yeah. And I always like to do this as well. Over the last 2 to 3 years, as we've had to discuss inflation so many different times, I like to remind the viewers, I like to remind the listeners on your radio channel that the incredibly high inflationary price that you now have to charge for your retirement blueprint process, it's gone up to how much?
It's still complimentary.
It's still 0 times 0.
Still 0 times 0.
Exactly.
Yes.
The retirement blueprint process, we've done a lot of shows. In fact, later on this month, we're going to be having a celebration. But what exactly are all of the elements that are in there? How does the retirement blueprint address inflation?
Well, it's a great question, Spike. When you look at, the confusion that happens is when people are in that accumulation time where they're basically saving towards retirement, it's pretty easy. I save X amount of dollars on a monthly basis. I work for this number of years. It should give me a certain amount of money. When I transition to the distribution phase of retirement, when now it's become real, right? I have what I have. And so when we created the retirement blueprint, it was really designed around covering all the different aspects of retirement. It starts with an income plan. We have to have an income plan that works, that won't break. The next thing we have to look at is the tax plan, because the tax plan is impacted by that income plan. We then want to make sure and look at the investment strategy that supports those plans, as well as long-term care, Social Security claiming strategy, pension claiming strategy, and then making sure we have an estate plan that wraps all around that to protect the estate for your spouse and for your family.
So when we talk about the retirement blueprint, and it's of course the name of the shows that you do, the retirement blueprint, it's not just like a piece of paper that you hand to somebody. It's a process. It's covering all of these things.
This isn't a booklet or a document that we send out. This is a custom written plan designed specifically for you. It's built along the lines of listening to your story. We talk about this all the time on the show. People bring us in a box of puzzle pieces, and we take those puzzle pieces and put them together to form the picture that people have of their retirement.
One of the things also from this Schroeder's page turner of a retirement study is that less than 40% of Americans feel like they've saved enough for retirement. You know, it used to be our grandparents' parents, they would maybe have that pension plan and a little bit of Social Security, and life expectancy 30, 40 years ago wasn't near what it is today. Are people saving enough? Are you seeing people saving enough? Those who come into the office, how are they doing?
Well, you know, again, our view is a little bit slighted because of the folks that come in are a lot of times more prepared, I think, than the average person. You know, when you look at the statistics and all the studies that we've reported on, the savings in America is way below where it needs to be. And so when we're looking at this as a country, this is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people out there that are worried. Hey, I'm behind. Here's the thing. You don't know if you're behind until you sit down and have a plan, right? We have to sit down and take a look at things. We need to understand the income that's coming in, and we need the time to be able to prepare. So the earlier that people come in, the quicker that they make that decision, the better off they're going to be.
Right. We've got some other effects of inflation that we're going to talk about, but more importantly, how the inflation then affects you on, theoretically, that either fixed income or you in retirement, and then eventually some of the solutions you need to do. But you can call the phone number right now, get started on your own no-cost retirement blueprint. You can also use that QR code down on the bottom of the screen there. Open up your phone to the camera function and point it at the QR code. It'll take you right over to a landing page where you can schedule your own appointment right there. More with Tim Lofton right after this message.
The mistake that we see with a lot of people coming into our office is that they made a projection of how much money they were going to need maybe 20 years ago, and they didn't account for inflation in those figures. The average retiree is going to spend at least 20 years in retirement. That means that the cost of living is going to double at least one time. For example, if somebody 20 years ago said, I'm going to need $40,000 for my investments in retirement, that number is only worth $20,000 now. And so they actually needed to make sure they were looking for $80,000 if $40,000 net was their number back then. So as we're looking at the income needed in retirement, we have to have a plan in place that's going to double our income over that same period, or we're going to have to reduce our lifestyle, which is not what we worked all our lives for. Those are the types of things that we try and help clients with as they're planning out their future retirement to make sure that taxes and inflation are covered in those projections. If taxes and inflation are keeping you up at night, give us a call. Sit down, let us do a complimentary review with you and design your very own retirement blueprint. It's our trademark process that we've designed over the last 30 years to help you retire and stay retired.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. Today we're talking about the inflation hangover. It's been 2 or 3 years we've been talking about this inflation. It's not going away. There's a newer comer, though, to this category that's really bothering me, and it's insurance. What are some of the reasons we're seeing such increased insurance, both on homes and automobiles, Tim?
Well, I mean, certainly if you look at, we've had a lot of issues this year with the hurricanes and storms, and that it's been more widespread than normal. I mean, this isn't just the coasts that are being hit, but right here in Ohio, I mean, we've had, crazy wind and hail and all those types of things. And so as you look at the claims, I mean, the level of claims that are happening. And we've been reporting on this in Florida for the last year or so, that a lot of insurance companies have actually pulled out of Florida, that they're not even in that market now.
I've never heard that before in my life, that some of the folks that we've talked to down in those markets are saying, I don't have home insurance. What? What happened? And so the devastation is tenfold, clearly, to families down there. But I think it's also increasing then the insurance across the country, because it's not just happening down there, so it's increasing the rates everywhere.
Not at the same level, but we're still seeing large increases. I mean, my mom lives down in Florida, and Mom seems to make it on the show a lot. But her cost of homeowners insurance doubled. So, I mean, you look at the inflation that we have had just with groceries and gasoline, but when you start talking about costs doubling, that's a major impact for retirees.
And Mom is retired.
And Mom is retired.
Okay, so now I got to ask you, so what are you doing to help Mom either rework the plan, or had you had inflationary costs like that kind of built in? How is she doing? Well,
I mean, she tells me all the time it's tough. You know, I mean, you have a situation where, she lives in a community that's an over 55 community. And that is the common theme when they have their little get-togethers and parties and picnics and all those types of things, that that cost of living is just driving down standard of living. And if you think about, as we age, the common thought used to be 20 years ago, well, I'll just spend less money. Because I'm, 80 years old. Well, my mom's 80 years old, and she's not spending less money because she's still active, and all the people in her community are active. And so it's not the retirement that we used to have to prepare for, 20 or 30 years ago, because people are not slowing down, which is great, right? I mean, we have longevity, we have better health, we're taking better care of ourselves, which means our money has to last longer. We don't have that normal drop off in the late 70s, early 80s, where we're just spending less money because we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. But thankfully, we know that Social Security has a cost of living adjustment every year. Isn't that helping Mom keep pace?
Well, you would think so. And this is a common misnomer. There's a really good study out there on Social Security, understanding Social Security normally has a cost of living adjustment. It's based off of CPI, Consumer Price Index, and it's supposed to index Social Security to keep up with cost of living, right? Unfortunately, if you look at this study, over a 30-year period of time, let's say that I was receiving a $3,000 Social Security check in today's dollars. 30 years from now, even with the cost of living adjustment, it's only going to buy $1,500 worth of stuff. That's a decrease of 50%.
And so Mom is feeling those effects.
Absolutely.
The flip side then is what? Take more risk in her investment portfolio to try to keep up, but that's a risky game right there. Now you're at the whims of the ups and downs of the markets.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why planning is so important. And I feel like, a lot of times when you look at retirement plans that have come into our office that were done by someone else, and they've got Social Security growing, but there's a loss of understanding that Social Security is not going to keep pace, or if they're leveraging too much of their need from Social Security. And a lot of times we're seeing people go completely risk off. They're taking low risk. They say, hey, I'm in my 60s or I'm in my 70s. I don't want to take any risk because of my age, which, as we've talked about, is often a major mistake. Because if you look at doing things the way that we talk about doing them, giving jobs to the money, making sure that the part of the portfolio that has to generate income is doing just that, is generating income, but that frees up or liberates the rest of those dollars for growth. And that is such an important key component to a good plan.
On today's program, we're talking about the inflation hangover. Inflation just keeps hanging around right now. Prices have remained high. I'm afraid that these price points have been set. But as soon as you say hangover, you're right, though. It does bring me back to my days at Arizona State.
Unfortunately, this is one that aspirin isn't going to fix.
Yeah, the aspirin's not going to fix it. I remember how many math exams I took, and I got the calculations wrong. What happens when we're not calculating things like inflation into our retirement plan, Tim?
Inflation and taxes a lot of times are the biggest miss. When we see plans that have been done by other people, they're not taking into account, for example, taking a withdrawal from their IRA, that dollar amount coming out is not what people end up with, right? There's taxes. It's a pre-tax, tax-deferred plan. So by definition, as I'm taking money out, I'm losing my purchasing power because I'm not getting the amount that I actually need. When we're putting together a plan, the plan has to take in things like taxes, like inflation. There has to be a growth component to that plan. All of that is designed and built into the retirement blueprint.
What's been exciting to me is something that you've talked about in redefining or re-examining your retirement timeline. Mm-hmm. We need to take into account things like inflation, longevity, those healthcare costs, and yeah, mom could be there in that 55 community until mid-90s, until 100. We've done stories on a 115-year-old.
Living with her 96-year-old daughter.
Yeah, with her 96-year-old daughter. So how do you redefine then the retirement timeline? What are we talking? Are we telling people they got to work until 80?
Well, hopefully not. Listen, retirement is going through a shift right now. There is a pivot that we have seen for the last 5 to 10 years where people aren't looking at retirement as a hard stop anymore. It's more of a gradual shift. And this, if you think about the value that does to a plan, number one, let's say that I start working part-time. The money that I'm making, a lot of times I'm also getting to keep my insurance. I don't have to take as much out of my portfolio. That's allowing it to grow. I'm not claiming Social Security early, which allows that to grow. So the longer that I delay, the longer that I continue to spread out what that hard stop looks like, the better my plan gets, the more secure it becomes.
I don't have a hard stop, but we're going to be going to a break soon. Again, though, for folks wondering, do they need to extend that timeline? Do they have enough saved? The retirement blueprint will actually do those calculations for them?
It absolutely will, Spike. It will take into account all the different factors, all these metrics that we're talking about today. It'll look at your retirement situation, your family, what you want to have happen, and it will build a plan customized for you.
Right. So we want to talk about some of the solutions for what you can do if we either have to extend your working timeline for retirement, and we might just be talking about a year or two. A little bit of extra savings. That means you're not drawing down on those retirement accounts. Maybe we can push out Social Security. But there also might be some tax-efficient things to do, maybe some efficiencies in the actual investments themselves, lowering your costs, maybe even just getting a 1 or 2% increase in casual returns over a period of time. We're not talking about swinging for the fences, just hitting a couple of singles. But whatever it is, we want to make sure that you have a complete retirement blueprint. Call the phone number down here on the bottom of the screen. Let's get you started on your own retirement blueprint. But in fact, don't go anywhere. What happens when your retirement gets derailed? Tim put together this message.
Are you concerned that high inflation, rising interest rates, and stock market volatility may derail your retirement plan? If you're unsure how to manage your retirement withdrawals from your 401k or IRA, to be sure you don't run out of money, at Axum Planning and Wealth, we'll help evaluate your retirement readiness. Contact us today for your own complimentary analysis and your very own retirement blueprint. My most rewarding moment for helping clients is seeing the fear of the unknown disappear from their face. Some people are worried about a potential nursing home stay. Some, it's market volatility and losing their money in their investment. Some are just genuinely concerned about the direction of the economy. But for the most part, the whole taking away of fear and concern starts with having a plan. Not something off the shelf, but something customized to that family, where we can sit down and get to know them intimately, to understand what their hopes and dreams are. What do they want to have happen after they're gone? And make sure that those things happen. The retirement blueprint is exactly that. It's a blueprint for retirement. It's built off of the 5 cornerstones of retirement planning. That's developing an income plan, creating a tax plan, an estate plan, a long-term care and health care plan, and of course,
the investment plan. And the best part is we have a team of people to come alongside to do all of those things that have the credentials and the expertise and the years of experience to make sure that everyone is coming together to create the best plan. It takes those worries out of their head and puts solutions down on paper.
Are you feeling the inflation hangover yourself? High prices eating away at your retirement savings. That's what I'm talking about today with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. And let's get to it. Some of the solutions. What are the, look, we like to be positive. What can people do to get their retirement back on track?
Well, an easy one, Spike, is maximizing your employer savings. So whatever type of plan, 401k, 403b, whatever the letter and numbers that you have in your particular plan, putting that maximum in there, doing those catch-up provisions, you can save up to $30,500 a year now, Spike. That gets you back in the game pretty quick. And so as we look at maximizing some of those things are pretty easy. I mean, listen, we control three things: how long we work, how much we save, how much we spend. That's it. Everything else is outside of our control. So when we're looking at solutions, like, for example, slowing down that retirement, not taking it as quickly, doing a transition into retirement with maybe part-time work, maximizing benefits that we have through our employer with matching, and maximizing the contributions we make to our plans, it absolutely can fast track us and get us back on track.
And when you're saying part-time work, you're not necessarily saying to go work at KFC.
No.
And nothing against KFC. In fact, maybe we could get a sponsorship. Listen, if you like.
At Popeyes, they're offering like 18 or 19 bucks an hour with healthcare benefits and 401k.
What we're saying is that maybe you could transition at your workplace. You know, I've known a lot of folks as they're nearing retirement. They say, "Oh, I don't even want to let my employer know that I'm thinking about it."
Right.
Hey, you know, they might look forward to the idea of, hey, maybe we can work into a supervisory role. You're working a little bit more part-time, maybe a little bit contract. You might be able to enjoy kind of dipping your toe into the water of retirement instead of jumping off the cliff.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a conversation with your employer. We have had so many people, listen, post-COVID, working from home, working remote, flexibility. You know, when I ask people, why don't you want to tell your employer? They say, well, they really need me. They really like me. Well, that's a good thing. So you have some control there. Have a conversation with them. Say, hey, you know, I'm working 50 hours a week. I'm thinking about slowing down. What would 30 hours a week look like? Is there another role that I could potentially grow into? Is there opportunities for me to work from home a couple days a week? Those conversations have been very productive. We have so many clients that work out at the base that they get to retirement, they go back in as a contractor, they go back in part-time, they're still making a good deal of money. Because remember, at that stage, I don't need to save more for retirement. I've already done that. So I can back that need out of working. And then a lot of times if I'm 65, I've got my Medicare. I mean, things can be very positive with a conversation with your employer about a potential transition.
Yeah, and we do hear that more often with government sorts of jobs, but maybe in the private sector, it's a conversation that you might have to get started with your employer, something like that.
For
on the part-time. But here's the thing, I don't hear from folks coming into your office 61, 62, 63, 64, that their 401k, over in the private sector, is preparing them for retirement, saying, hey, come in, let's take a look, see how much risk you're taking. Let's see if you've saved enough. Why doesn't the 401k provider, why doesn't the 401k system help? And what can we do if we're those 3 or 4 years out from retirement?
Well, that's a great question. Listen, they're not going to give you advice. They don't want the legal responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility of telling you how to invest and what that's supposed to look like. So they give you those online calculators. They give you these tools that you're supposed to figure out and manage and maneuver and decide what that planning is supposed to look like. You have options. After 59 and a half, for example, you can do what's called an in-service rollover. That means that you can roll your plan from your 401k work plan into an IRA, it can then become self-directed. It opens up that toolbox that we've talked about in the past of having not just the mutual funds that are maybe inside your 401k, but maybe things that are going to be more income focused, things with guarantees, things that are more appropriate for your timing in retirement.
Right, and I'm taking a look at those things, as we're saying, the inflation hangover. This one isn't going to take a couple of Alka-Seltzer and go away.
Right.
So maybe extending that timeline, having some sort of idea of how we could possibly transition to a lighter retirement is a good idea. The 401k provider likely is not going to be reaching out to you. So also about what to do with those funds, do you mind sitting down with folks even 3 or 4 years away from retirement, see how on target they are?
Listen, the sooner you come in, the sooner you get a plan together, the better your plan's going to be, because time fixes a lot. And we can have those conversations about Social Security claiming strategy, pension claiming strategy. You know, we have so many different tools available to us to share with people. All you have to do is come in.
Is it usually an automatic for folks when they're stepping into that retirement month that they're going to want to turn on that Social Security right away? Is that an automatic yes for you, or is that a wait and see?
No, it's absolutely a wait and see. We want to take a look. You know, we had a situation with a client that came in. The wife was getting ready to claim her Social Security. Husband had already claimed his. We found out that she could claim half of his. It was actually going to be more than her full retirement, and then let hers defer to age 70. So you don't know what you don't know. And when you're looking at Social Security, it's a lifetime decision. You want to make the right one.
Right. So optimizing that Social Security, in your opinion, though, isn't always about letting it grow out to the age of 70.
No.
Optimizing also includes tax strategies?
It does include tax strategies. We want to make sure that we don't turn on that Social Security while we're still working. That is a major mistake, because I can lose up to 2/3 of those dollars if I'm continuing to work without making a whole lot of money at all.
One of the suggestions I read, like in a Yahoo news group one day, was, assess your financial situation. Well, how does our viewer at home assess their own financial situation? Is it just seeing how much they've saved? Do they have life insurance to cover for estate planning? What is somebody at home supposed to assess on their own?
Well, that's the thing, is you can't assess on your own. You need help. We all need help. We all have areas in life that we specialize in. Retirement is ours, and we would love to do that for you.
Tim Lofton, thank you so much. The inflation hangover, last question. Do you think this thing is going to keep hanging around?
I don't know, Spike. I don't know. That is to be determined.
Yes.
We will
Thank you
figure
very
it out.
much. Folks, for you watching the program here, if it's one of the first times that you've tuned in, or if you've been watching for the last couple of years, if you haven't gotten started on your own retirement blueprint, what are you waiting for? I know that there are millions of Americans out there who are worried about the higher costs of inflation eating away into their retirement savings. So what Tim Lofton has done for you is put together the entire process, your retirement blueprint, tailored, customized for you and your family to get you to and through retirement. Call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. There's no cost to come in. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.